Now is the time. The table is sprawled with character sheets, dice, pencils, and your players. You've prepared your game. Are you ready to go?
Let's talk about actually running the game. This is a topic that can and will spawn tons of videos down the road. So like our other videos in this series, we are just going to touch on the highlights.
So we've identified 5 different strategies that we think are key to a great game. The first step is to be descriptive. You can do this easily by using your adverbs and your adjectives.
Using these simple grade school tools is what's going to take your game from amateur to expert.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a huge difference between he swings his axe at you, he hits, take 5 damage, and he deftly brings down his axe, striking true into your shoulder. You suffer 5 damage.
Just with simple descriptions like this, you can easily spice up your games.
Absolutely. What I like to do is have an open tab on my computer with a full list of adverbs and adjectives, and you can Google these. That way they're there and they're ready to glance at whenever you need them.
This will also help others at the table feel more comfortable with role-playing. It helps to break everyone out of their shells. It keeps the game from devolving into an epic dice rolling simulator.
Right, we're talking about role-playing, right? Like role-playing. Having your players describe their actions gives them a sense of being in control of what their actual character is doing. They'll be more apt to follow the battle as it unfolds instead of just waiting for their next turn to roll the dice and crunch the numbers.
The second step is reading and engaging your players. The ability to read your players takes some practice and skill.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking for those simple tells such as building dice towers, doodling, playing on their phones, and so on, this could, but not always, be a hint that they're just not interested in what's going on. You'll have to read your players and determine what the reason is. Some players don't like combat. Some don't care for diplomacy talks. Adjust your game accordingly as the session goes on. If you notice the majority of your players losing interest at a particular time, it's time to shake things up.
If you're in the middle of combat, it may be time to end combat sooner or provide them a really epic moment in battle to bring their attention back to the game.
Yeah, absolutely. This could be killing the creature in a glorious bloodbath. If it's a puzzle, go ahead and let them solve it so you can move on with the game and bring their attention back.
Sometimes your ideas don't translate to the game as well as you had hoped. This is similar to trying to tell a funny joke and you immediately realize it's not as funny as when you first heard it.
The next step is improvisation. I know you've all heard about the great and wondrous tool known as improvisation, but to a lot of people, they have no idea how to do this or how to do it well.
Being able to think off the top of your head and react to whatever players throw at you is a skill that takes practice.
There are tons of tools out there that you can find on the internet that will help you with this skill. One of my favorites is Mick Napier, a famous improv comedian, director, and actor who wrote a book called Improvised, Seen from the Inside Out, and in there he describes tons of exercises that you can use to help improve your skills, mostly at home, by yourself, even at work. My favorite one involves acting out as a new character every 30 seconds for as long as you can without any preparation or forethought. First start with 5 minutes, then 10, 15, and so on. Keep at it, and before you know it, you'll be the next Matt Mercer.
Along with improv, you're going to need the rule of cool. A lot of times your players are going to want to do something that doesn't fit the rules as written. It's okay to let these rules slide if your players are having fun, as long as it doesn't hurt anyone at the table and is feasible.
Learn to do this in moderation though. Always allowing crazy sequences of events to happen will devaluate them over time. Suddenly the 15th time your rogue does some amazing backflip out of attack range and manages to hit and kill the monster isn't as fun as the first time.
You can also incorporate some skill checks into the action so that your players feel even more accomplished when the action is complete. Learning to say yes can be a powerful tool to increase your player engagement.
And last but not least, be confident. When using improv, the rule of cool, engaging your players, all of these things we've talked about, you're gonna be making some off-the-script calls, and that's okay. Control your table, but not in a douchey, I'm a god manner, but like in your driver's test, you know, when you walked in there, you sat down in your car, hands at 2 and 10, and you looked at him and he looked at you and you're like, I got this.
If any of your calls are questioned, unless it could result in the death of a character, ask the player to bench it until the end of the game or next break, and you can look at it together.
If you make a bad rules call, admit it. It's my bad, guys. So-and-so was right, whatever. There's nothing wrong with that. Admitting a bad call will actually foster a better trust and relationship with you and your players, not hinder it.
So how do you deal with someone who's not comfortable with role-playing or playing in character during a game session?
Yeah, so you'll find a lot of times, especially with some newer players, they're not necessarily always comfortable with role-playing. And that's all right. You know, it took me a long time to even think about, you know, using voices and big, honest gestures and, you know, being all crazy. Those are the things that help people get into character and into game, but it's also not necessarily for everybody. So there are different types of players. And we'll go over those in a future episode, and we'll talk about the different ones that there are. But in general, I think the kind of the best way to get characters involved, get players involved, is to really just encourage that. Do it yourself. Kind of speak in. It doesn't have to necessarily be voices, but it can be dialect. If you talk like Shatner, that almost works as a voice. Mm-hmm. So I mean, if you do stuff like that and not necessarily really crazy voices, I'm talking like this, or anything really weird and trying to do crazy stuff, you won't scare them off. Mm-hmm. And I think just letting them come to it on their own. But it's weird now. It seems as though that thanks to Critical Role and some of the other shows that are out there, especially podcasts, it's really not an issue anymore. You're almost a weirdo if you're not doing that.
Tell me about a time when you had to improvise during a game session and how it turned out.
Yeah, so I improvise a lot. I think that a lot of our videos have talked about that at this point. That's really kind of more my wheelhouse, is just kind of going with the flow. But as I talked about this video, a lot of times you need to pay attention to your players. No matter how well you think your story is going, there are times where what you think is going to be cool doesn't necessarily translate well. And so paying attention to your players and looking at their reactions, how they're answering questions. Are they looking at you? Are they, stacking up their dice, which isn't always, a bad thing, or messing with their phones or those kinds of things. Pay attention to what they're doing. And if you are noticing that around the table, something's got to change, and it's got to change right now. And so the last time that I had done that was my last game that I'd ran a couple months ago. And essentially, they were like they'd just gotten arrested, thrown in jail, in prison, and they were having some difficulties kind of in that role play scenario on what to do. And you could tell they were just getting bored with it. And that's okay. That's going to happen. But it's important to recognize that and then stop. Just stop whatever it is that's going on. And what happened was I destroyed the city in response to that. So I took the story from they were just going to be arrested, they were going to go before the queen, they were going to get interrogated, they were going to do this, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, to they were getting bored. So I had the city be attacked by, I think it was a bunch of demons and undead, just to kind of shake things up right then, right now. And so I just shook up the whole world immediately just to catch their attention. And it worked. It took that. Yep. And the direction that I was going, it just went somewhere else, and that it worked.
How do you let a player down nicely when it comes to the rule of cool?
Yeah, so we briefly mentioned it. Yes and is very powerful, but so is no but. And we'll probably go into this a little bit further down the road, but knowing when to say yes and when to say no are really important. If your player wants to jump on a chandelier and like swing down and hit a guy, fine, go for it. Yes, and you'll get advantage for that attack. Yes, and he stumbles over and falls to the floor. Just something to add a little bit of extra to that player's idea. So you're taking their idea and then you're kind of adding on a little bit of your own, and then you're creating that piece together. But it's also important to know when to say no. But don't just flat out say no. Like, can I jump on this dragon's back? No. Like that's kind of a dick move. So the best way to handle that, and the way that at least I like to handle it, is no but. So, and I don't know if we mentioned this or not before, but essentially, hey, can I jump on that dragon's head and stab it in the face? No, because it kind of breaks realism, right? Like we're talking about a halfling or something. He's not going to jump up and stab the dragon in the face.
We're not Legolas here.
Yeah, right. No, but you can roll me a grapple check and try to climb up the back of its leg. Okay? Like, no, you can't do this ridiculous thing, but I'm still going to kind of sort of buy into what you're thinking, and we'll put it together and we'll make something work. Can I jump to the moon? No. No. And there's no but to that. That's just a stupid question, and the answer is no. Yeah. But most of the time, just going along with the players' ideas and allowing them to adapt to the story and kind of bring into the story what they want. And yes and no but. Those are probably the best two ways.
That's it. The 5 steps to running your game. Be descriptive, read and engage your players, improvise, rule of cool, and confidence. With these 5 things, you are sure to run one hell of a game.
So join us next week on our final video in our 6-step How to GM series, Getting Proper Feedback. If you guys like what you see here, there's a like and a subscribe button. Hit the like on this video. Please consider subscribing down below, and we'll see you next Monday at 6.
Before we go, do you have a unique way of running your games or other tips? Let us know in the comments down below.
We'd love to hear them. See you next week.